My name's Mike. I make things under the label Mike Jones Knife and Tool. A lot of what I do is making knives, and this is going to be a quick example of how I make most of my knives. It's not going to be another how-to video, it's just going to be a real quick and dirty walkthrough of how I do it. So here we go. Okay, so almost all of my shapes I draw out on paper first, and then I cut them out and trace them onto whatever steel I'm using for that particular knife. A lot of guys will use bandsaws or hacksaws to cut out their blades. I like to use a zip disc on an angle grinder. It's really fast, and with some practice you can get really good at roughing out the shape with it. Once it's cut out, I use a 4x36 belt grinder to clean up the shape. It's not the 2x72 that all the pros use, but I do this on the weekends for fun, and I can't drop $2 grand onto a pro grinder. But this one was 80 bucks on sale, and the belts are only 6 bucks a piece. I use the same machine to grind the bevels on the knife. I guess if I ever get a vertical grinder I'll have to relearn this step, but then I can get one of those jigs that does that for me. I'm using a Dremel tool to clean up the hard to reach places. File is good for this too. Then I drill out holes for the pins and it's ready for heat treating. This is my little forge made from a brake drum and my girlfriend's old blow dryer. Works good. I heat the steel until it's no longer magnetic and then cool it very quickly by quenching it in oil. This is a very difficult step to film yourself doing, so sorry. And here's another one. So again, this is a how-do video, not a how-to video. So for reasons that are beyond that scope, I bake it. So this is what it looks like after heat treating. First step will be to clean off all the scale, first on the belt grinder, and then we'll hand rub it with some sandpaper. At this point it's important not to let the steel get too hot, so I don't wear gloves and keep a bucket of water around to dunk it in. So this is definitely my least favorite part just because it can take forever. I leave the tang pretty rough just to help the glue out. Next I mask the blade off to keep it from getting scratched. Next it's time for some handle material. This one's getting oak. I cut the handles out with my jigsaw and leave lots of room for error. Then using the blade as a template, I drill out the pinholes. It's around now that I measure and cut the pins, and then I grind them nice and clean on my grinder. Now I temporarily pin the scales together and I flush up the front of the handle. This is where the steel comes out of the wood and it's impossible to do later. There are a couple of little things that you missed, but basically it's time for assembly. I like to get glue everywhere, really ram those pins in, and then clamp it up and leave it overnight. Alright, so the glue has cured overnight, and it's starting to kind of look like a knife. So I'll chalk it up in the vise and we'll shape the handle. Okay, so it's back to the angle grinder, and this time with a flap wheel. These things can do a lot of damage in a hurry, and at this point I've got anywhere from 4 to 8 hours into a knife, so it'd be a real shame to mess it up at this point. So I rough out the shape the best I can with the grinder, and then I finish by hand with a half a dozen grits of sandpaper. So when I'm happy with the handle, I finish it with a few coats of boiled linseed oil. Then I etch my maker's mark into the blade and give the edge a final hone. Alright, so that's it. Pretty easy, right? Because it's high carbon steel as opposed to stainless, I'll put a thin layer of oil on it. Probably grapeseed oil because it's food safe. And that's it. Sorry if any of the filming of this has been really terrible. I've never done anything like this before. And in case I never do it again, I'd like to do a quick thanks to everybody who supported me in this. My friends and family, everyone who's helped me out along the way. Big thanks to Dave, who this knife is for. He won't know that I'm filming this until he sees it, so thanks, Dave. Big thanks to my girlfriend Carrie, who puts up with me spending way too much time out here in the shed. And finally, thanks to all my customers, everyone who's ever bought a knife from me. You guys are the ones who make this happen, so thanks a lot.